Good evening, everybody. If it's evening where you are in the world, I am Greg Venning. I'm here with you live from Cape Town, South Africa. It's just on 8 o'clock our time, and that's the time I promised we'd get started. We do have people who are still logging in, getting themselves going with some of the technology. And so to get ourselves started, while we'll give a few people time to join on, please can you type in your name in the chat section and just let me know where in the world you're joining us from. Where in the world are you? Just pop your location in the chat section. If you've been with me on a webinar before, you'll know that I say that it's quite lonely sometimes presenting to a screen. So it is lovely to know who I'm presenting to. Now, you might see that there's somebody else on the call. Else is there. Ailey is my wife, and she's also here as tech support to make sure that I do everything right. And she might pop herself on video in a sec, just to introduce herself and say hello. In the meantime, we have Julie from Cape Town, Prabha from Durbs, Jürgen from Cape Town, Caroline from Glasgow, yes, Marietta from Gauteng in South Africa, Jean from Cape Town, more Cape Town, some Durbs, some more Cape Town, beautiful. Lots of people coming in from the Cape. And Ailey just needs her video started, and I don't know how to do that for her. I can't start your video from the site, sweets. But what I can do is unmute you if you'd like to just say hello to everybody. People coming in, a few more from Cape Town, somebody coming in from Kimberley in South Africa, beautiful, from the Northern Cape. Lovely. Okay, cool. So we have people joining us thick and fast. Happy Wednesday, everyone. Okay, so for those of you who just joined in, I am Greg Venning. On with me on the call is also Ailey, who's helping us with tech support.
Hi, everybody.
There we go. Beautiful. Okay, so Sue from Cape Town says hello. That's gorgeous. So let's get ourselves started, everybody. So we've invited you here. You've joined us here on this idea of mastering your mind, master your mind, and go beyond stress management to dance through the chaos of life. Now, there's a beautiful concept of the chaos of life, and life is chaotic, especially recently. In the last few months, life has seemed to get even more chaotic than we thought it could be. And I've got some good news and some bad news. The bad news is that life doesn't get easier. Yeah, chaos and the chaos of life is there to stay. That's the tricky news. The good news is that life doesn't get easier, we get better. So let's find out how we can help you with that. Let's dig into that tonight. We've got a lot to give to you tonight. There's a ton of value that I'm going to give to you tonight. Make sure you can take some notes as you go and that you really take in some of what we're presenting to you tonight. I really hope that you've gone and done that innate model questionnaire that you got an email about. If you didn't do it, then just take everything in from tonight and you can get to that questionnaire afterwards, because that'll let you know how this maybe applies to you. But even within what I present to you tonight, you'll be able to recognize some of your preferences in how you do life. Okay, so let's start with this. What's your score? Now, before you give yourself a score, we're going to help you to give yourself a score between 0 and 10. I want you to close your eyes wherever you are, as long as you're not driving a car, you're not doing anything with heavy machinery, maybe cooking food, but close your eyes if you can. And I want you to give yourself a score for your own health, your own well-being between 0 and 10. Now, on the scale, if you were at 8 to 10 out of 10, you would be in what we call the vitality zone. This is where you would have great moods, great shape, great energy, great focus and purpose in life. You would have great connection to life. That's the 8 to 10 range. If we get to the 6s and the 7s out of 10, then moods are more up and down, energy more up and down. Not quite as good as I could be or I have been before, though. If you're at the 5 out of 10 mark, now you're at the point where there's nothing quite wrong, nothing quite right. Yeah. If you're at the 4s and the 3s, definitely moods more down than up, energy more down than up, health issues coming through, stuck in your body more than free. And if you get to the 2s and the 1s, more likely some chronic conditions coming through, medications that you probably have to be on. And if you were at 0 out of 10, you wouldn't be on this call. Now, honestly, just for yourself, give yourself a score out of 10 for your own health and well-being based on what I've just given you. Now, if you want to, And if you feel like it, pop your score down in the chat section below. It's not something that everybody gets to see, but it's a declaration to yourself that you've been brutally honest with this, and that you've set the bar for where you are now, and then we'll talk about where we want to get to. So we've got some numbers coming in from here. I'm not going to read the names out as they come in, but 6, a 1 and 2, a 7. Thank you for being honest there. A 6 coming in. We've got a few more, some 4s and some 5s, a 7 coming in, 7. Now, at these numbers coming in, I'll tell you the pattern that I'm likely to see here, because I've done this with thousands of people now in places across the globe, both in live settings and in online settings. And on average, if I had to say to people, what's your score? Most people would say they're somewhere between 5 and 7 out of 10. And I would say to these people, are you healthy? So if your number's between 5 and 7 out of 10, and I ask you, are you healthy? The answer is likely to be yes, like I'm healthy. There's nothing wrong. I'm healthy. But there's a big problem with that. There's a massive problem with that. And that means we are defining health by the absence of symptoms and problems and diseases. But really, health is not just the absence of disease or infirmity, the WHO says. Health is optimum function, socially, mentally, physically. Health is about moving to the 8 to 10 out of 10 range. Now, we all have our own version of 10 out of 10. It might not be what it was 20 years ago. Yours might be different from mine, but you have your version of vitality, of being able to thrive, that is innate to you, that you inherently have within you. And this is something that you can move towards no matter where you are on the scale now. And so if we're just defining health by being not sick, then we're just going to wait to get sick. That's what we do in society. We wait to get sick when we think we're just okay, and then suddenly it takes us. No, it wasn't suddenly. It's been a process that's driven us down over time. And just like that, it's a process where we can lift ourselves up over time. So let's dig into how we can do this in the mental and emotional space. Because the biggest killers of our 21st century is stress and depression and anxiety and fear and our limiting beliefs that hold us back. If we have a belief that 7 is the best we're ever going to be, well, then 7's the best you're ever going to be. And I hope through tonight that we can help you to shift some of these limiting beliefs and to help you to become aware of them so that you can look at them for what they truly are, limiting beliefs. But our mental and emotional state is probably one of the biggest killers of the 21st century. We know that there's many things in the world that are better than they've ever been. We have fewer people in poverty, fewer people in hunger than we've ever had in the world. But somehow, well-being and fulfillment across the globe is decreasing. It's on its way down. It's as true for us here in South Africa as it is for people in the UK, as it is in the US, as it is in Australia, as it is virtually everywhere on the planet. Well-being and fulfillment is on the way down, while material wealth has been on the way up for centuries. There's a mismatch here. There's something fundamentally wrong. And it hasn't happened by chance. There are specific reasons we're in the state we're in. There's specific reasons you're in the state you're in. They are controllable. We have a massive amount of influence in what's happening in our lives, and our perspective on our lives, and how we're viewing ourselves, and you are in control. This is something you can influence. This is something you can change. This is something that can shift fundamentally in your own life. So you're here because you want to improve your life in some way. You want to move from wherever you are on that scale closer towards 10 in some way, shape, or form. You might want to improve somebody else's life. You might know that by gaining some skills, you can help someone else to improve their lot, their experience, their energy, their vitality that they bring in life. You might be ready to stop doing something that's not working. Maybe it's a pattern of eating. Maybe it's a pattern of thinking. Maybe it's a pattern of relationships. Maybe it's a pattern of how you deal with yourself and your body and your glorious mind. But you're ready to stop doing something that's working, and you're ready to start doing something that's better. Now, I want you to hold this in your mind, because as we do this together, my words are going to go with you, and you're going to find it very easy to really focus and concentrate and take out some nuggets of gold that can shift your life and your transformation. Because you've dedicated to being here for this time for yourself in some way. Even if you're helping someone else, you're getting something for this yourself. So please hold this in your mind as we go through, so that as we go through it, you can find, and you will find, these nuggets of gold, so that when you leave here tonight, our time tonight, you've taken something with you. You haven't just had a jacuzzi experience where you've been in here with me and it's been entertaining, maybe, but nothing changes when you get up. Like in a jacuzzi, you're in there, it feels good, but when you get out, nothing changes. But if we can have a transformative experience, you found at least one thing that you can take with you that can massively transform how you've done your life and how you do your life going ahead. And all you need is one thing. Now, the content I'm going to deliver here tonight there's just so much for you to get. You'll find that you'll be able to pick up one thing with ease. And at the end, I'm going to give you a chance to take things further if you want to, but you don't have to. So, the last thing that might bring you here, save this one for last. Maybe somebody else wants you to improve. Maybe somebody else has nudged you to sign this up, or they've signed you up and popped you in front of your computer or a tablet or a phone. And if you're sitting there kind of cross-legged, slightly begrudgingly, just find one thing in the time that we have together. And this will be so worth your while. If all you get is one thing, this time together will be so worth it. So imagine this. Imagine you are clear on your passion and you can follow your passion in life. Imagine feeling fulfilled by what you're doing every single day. Imagine being less affected by your beliefs. Imagine being less limited, being less fearful of life because of those beliefs. Imagine being connected with all. Imagine just feeling connected to the people around you, to the world around you. Imagine just feeling connected to all. Or imagine just getting the results you want. Imagine earning the money you want to and getting the pay rise you want to and climbing the ladder you want to or creating the business you want to. Imagine just getting the results, whether it's with mind or body or wealth or vocation, or whether it's making societal and social change. Just imagine getting the results you want. Because tonight, I want to help you to get those things. I want to help you to discover this unique blueprint that is your brain. That is your neurology, how you work. I want to help you to explain why you do what you do. That is so fundamental, is why you do what you do. So you can get effective new ways of processing the world, of doing life, and new strategies. So you can apply them immediately from the end of this call. Actually, even the middle of this webinar that we're doing, you will have new ways of doing things and new strategies that you can implement straight away from what we're teaching. But the only way for you to get better results is to use a different neurological process to that which got you here now. So the idea of what got you here will not get you there. The way that you've gotten to this point has gotten you to this point. And if you keep doing this, it's going to keep you at this point. And maybe you felt that. Maybe you felt stuck. But to get to a new point, to get to a different point, to get to a further point, you need to do something differently. We need to do our neurology differently. So my purpose, what gets me up every day, what has me in front of you here now and loving this, is that my purpose in life is to lift the stream of human consciousness and propel the evolution of mankind. And I need to do this for myself first and help others with it. This is what we do with our family. This is what I do in my own life. And this is what I do in my professional life, is to lift the stream of human consciousness and propel the evolution of mankind. And you're on this call because some of this, I might not have put those words out when you came across this either on social media or in your email or a friend sent this to you, but something in this resonated with you. And I believe that you're on this journey with me as well. So join me as we go through this. This is my gorgeous family. That's my wife, Ailey, who's on the call with us. My youngest, who looks like she's looking at her nails there, Imogen, and my eldest with the cheeky grin is Bria. And I can tell you that everything I'm going to teach you tonight, we apply in our own lives every single day. This is something I've been learning for, I first came across this work in about 2007. And I've been learning it and I'm teaching it and I'm using it for myself. I'm using it in my own business. I'm using it in my own life. So everything I'm teaching you, we use in our own lives every single day. And I truly believe that from the nucleus of my family to planet Earth, this is universally applicable. And I truly believe that if everybody knew some of this knowledge that I'm going to teach you tonight, we would be living on a better planet. We'd be living in a better place. It is that big. I know that sounds huge, and I'm going to break it down so it's much more manageable, but that's the power behind this. So what drives a lot of this process is this concept called the innate model. The innate model is a synthesis of a whole lot of teaching over a long time that's been brought together by a man called Mark Postles, who wrote this book called The Innate Model, and then put forward how this can be used in school and in education called Generation Failure. So that's where it comes from. So just before we start digging into the actual meat and the actual content is, the results, what we're going to do tonight has worked for thousands of people. It's worked for me. And there's no guarantees that it'll work for you, because you have to be willing to do the work to allow it to work for you. And it might work for you in very different ways to how it's worked for other people. I know that these principles are timeless. I know that these principles are sound because we've done it for so many people. But you have to do the work to get it. You have to do the stuff to get the results. So make sure that when you're on this call tonight, you're zoning in. And I know that you're going to find it easy to find those nuggets of gold as you go, some aha moments that'll make your life different. So here's the fundamental thing to remember from the very beginning that everything else in this webinar is based on, is your results, where you are now in life, is a result of the behaviors that you've done. Your habits, your routines, your rituals, your behaviors determine your destiny. What we do every day determines who we become. So your behaviors determine your results. Now we would like to think that we are rational creatures. We would like to think that our thinking brain controls us. But what actually happens when we look at psychology, what psychology tells us is it's actually much more our emotions that drive us, our deeper psychology that actually drives our continuous behaviors. So your psychology, your emotions drive your behaviors drive your results. So here's what we're going to dig into tonight. There's loads of people out there teaching you how to do different behaviors, telling you to do different things. And that can be useful. Knowing what to do is useful. But there's no shortage of people telling you what to do at the moment. Some people may be telling you how to approach habits and routines and rituals. And that's really important. That tells you the how. That's the psychology space. But the deepest, most valuable space that we're digging straight into tonight is the whys, our philosophy of life, our views and our beliefs on life, and how that then drives our emotions, how that drives our behaviors, and that drives our results. Whether the result is building a big business or losing weight or having a close-knit, healthy family, whatever those results are for you, this is a universal flow that affects us. And by taking control of this foundational part at the bottom, the philosophy space, the why that drives the how, that drives the what, that then drives the results, you can make massive change in your life. Now, there's a principle in all of nature, really, that structure affects function. The structure of a tree drives how it works. The structure of a leaf drives how it captures sunlight and turns it into energy. The structure of a person's body, even a baby, especially a baby, drives its function. The structure of all living things, the structure of the ocean drives the current. Structure affects function. So how does this apply to us tonight? Well, the human brain has structure. Your brain has structure. Your whole nervous system has structure, and that affects its function. So your brain right now is a snapshot and includes all the different snapshots over time through evolution. From the base of our brain that contains our reptilian base, then higher up contains our mammalian base, then higher up contains our primate base, and then we've got this human, what we'd almost think of as uniquely human, what seems uniquely human, layered on top of that. And we have these layers of brain. We're going to talk about how we work through these layers, either work up or work down. But the structure of the brain drives the function. So that allows us to study it a little bit. So we've all been born with the blueprint for this pretty similar structure, pretty same structure in our brain. But that's the nature. That's what we've been born with. The nurture, your journey, your unique journey through life then changes how this lovely, gorgeous brain adapts and wires around your experience to give you your view on life. So let's just talk about our brain for a second there. And let's have a look at this. So how do you see the world? Do we see the world as it actually is? So if we look at this, are all those lines parallel or do they slope? Now, if you look at it first, if you like me, I'll look at it and I go, no, they slope. But if you actually go into your screen and you look at it and you measure it, every single one of those lines is parallel. But because of a trick of the eye, they look like they slope. So we start getting to question whether we see the world as it is or whether we see a representation of the world. How about this one? If all we did was we saw the shadows, then if we think of those three on the bottom, let me get a little selector here. If we looked at these shadows on the bottom, we would say that we're looking at round things, and that one is the same as that one in the middle is the same as that one on the right. But actually, the whole thing is very different. That's a sphere, that's a cone, and that's a round shape, a cylinder. And if we looked at the shadows on these ones, we would say these two are very different shapes, but in fact, they're made by the same shape. So again, if all we're looking at is representations of reality, we're not seeing the whole thing. So how about this one? Oh, are those three figures of what looks like maybe a boy, are those the same size or are they different sizes? And again, if you're like me, you look at it straight away and you go, well, the furthest one on the right looks big, and then it gets smaller and smaller as it goes to the left, but take your fingers and just measure it on your screen. Do yourself a favor and look at it and measure it and notice that they're actually all exactly the same size. Perspective changes things. So we don't see the world as it is. We see a representation of the world. We see the world as we are. We see it through our own lens. We don't see objective reality. And this is really important because this happens day after day in every single interaction we ever do and we ever have. How about this one? Count all the black dots. Try and count the black dots and then pop that in the chat section once you've counted all the black dots. Now I could wait here all night for some answers coming through. But because of a trick of our visual perception, you don't see that. You might see a couple of black dots, but as soon as you look at them, they disappear. So you actually can't count them. They're everywhere you're not looking at. Isn't that fascinating? Isn't that fascinating that our brain can almost play tricks on us because we don't see the world as it is. We see a representation of the world as our nervous system picks it up and filters it. Here's a nice one. Try and do this out loud. Look at the chart and say the color, but not the word. So for instance, if I was going from left to right on the top, I would say red, black, purple. Yeah, I wouldn't say yellow, blue, orange. I would say red, black, purple. And go through this. Now, every now and again, there's somebody who finds that they can do this really easily. That's cool. But for most of us, when you do it, you hit a stumbling point because your brain's getting these conflicting messages. The one side of your brain, the right side of your brain is picking up the color, the left side is picking up the word, and they're at odds against each other. And so you hit a little bit of a state of confusion. So that's what we get. We get these differences in the side of the brain. So the left side of the brain tends to process information more linearly, more logically, more exclusive in terms of it divides things up, and more dominating. It wants a hierarchy of things. Where the right brain is more creative, more spatial about how things relate to each other, more inclusive. Instead of dividing things up, it tends to kind of look for similarities, and it's more supporting rather than dominating. Now, we used to think that one side was only creative, one side was only logical. That's not necessarily true. What's true is how the brain processes information is very different between the left and the right hemispheres. So you've kind of seen some of those in some of the brain teasers, but now you've seen this left-right division before. But how about this as well? That the forebrain is big picture, it's intuitive, it's risk-taking. It wants to do amazing things. Yeah, that's the front of the brain. It's also very visual, it's very trusting. It trusts life. Trust me, things will be okay. That's what the front of the brain does. The back of the brain is more orientated on detail, on instincts rather than intuition. It's kinesthetic, so it's very sensory on the body, and it's more about survival and protection rather than risk-taking. So now we have left, right, but we also have back and front. So if we now divide those up, we get different quadrants. And we have quadrant 1 on the top right, then quadrant 2 bottom left, then quadrant 3 on the right, and quadrant 4 on the left. Now, each of us has preferences in the structure of the brain, and it changes how we see the world dramatically. I'm going to take you through this, so stay with me as we go through each of the quadrants and find the things that you resonate with, where you go, oh, this is me, this is so me. Or you see these other things that come up and you go, oh, that annoys me. Those will be these complementary opposites. You're going to feel attracted to someone, repelled by others. So let's dig into these and find out where this takes you. Now, if you've done that innate model questionnaire, you will get 4 numbers, quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4. You get a score for each quadrant. Now, each one works in opposite to the other one. So let me get my annotation here. So let's say you got your numbers back and you got a number 10 up here in quadrant 1. In quadrant 2, let's say you got a 5. In quadrant 3, say you got a 12. And in quadrant 4, let's say you got a 6. Okay. So the way it works here is we look at the opposites. So 1 and 2 are opposites. So what we do is we take away the smaller one from the bigger one between 1 and 2. So the smaller one is 5. We take it away from 10 and we get 5. So you would say then that in quadrant 1, you are a +5. Okay. I'll tell you what this, I'll let you know what this means as we go. And then what you do is between 3 and 4, you do the same thing. So 3 and 4 are also opposites. That's why they're numbered like that. They're across from each other. So you'd say 6 taken away from 12 would give you a +6. So your quadrant preference is 1 and 3 if these were your scores. Now, if you've done the innate model questionnaire, you've got the results emailed to you with some videos of Mark Postle's explaining that to you. Now, if you haven't done that yet, that's fine. Just stay with me. I'm going to walk you through everything and you'll resonate. You'll find some of the things that match for you, and then you can do the questionnaire and look at this again afterwards. So don't get too lost in this, but if you have done it, that's how it works. Okay. There. Let me go backwards and just clear those annotations. All right, cool. So let's start with quadrant 1. Let's dig in. Let's find out if this resonates with you. Let's find if this is a space where you do life a lot. So quadrant 1 is all about anything is possible. Quadrant 1 is all about possibilities. It's the dreamer, it's the entrepreneur, it's the one who's willing to take risks, it's the eternal optimist. Trust me, things will work out. It asks the question why. Quadrant 1 is also very kind of verbal. It loves lots and lots of words. Not too stuck on the meanings, but it just loves expressing. And it's trust me, it'll work out. If this is you, then you'll know that you have a preference in quadrant 1. Now, something I want to say as we get started is this is not a personality profile. This is not, you are this type of person. It's not hedging you into a thing. Because when we look at the brain, we all have all parts, okay? There is nothing missing. We have different preferences in how we might use our brain and our neurology, but we all have all parts, okay? So it's not that you are a one, it's that you have a preference in one. And these preferences can shift over time. But it's useful to know what my preferences are so I know how I'm running my life. And I can then be aware of people who might have other preferences and I can cater to their preferences. So it's not that you're stuck in this box. It's not a personality profile. This is far more about preferences, about how we use our neurology, how we flow through it, or how we don't. And we're going to help you through that because that's how we do stress. So these are some of the things that would describe you if your score was high, if you had a lot of preference in quadrant 1: expressive, popular, promoter, gregarious, infectious, laughter, romantic, fun, dynamic, supportive, metaphorical, love stories, asks why, group oriented, talks quickly. Yeah, that's me. Quadrant 1 preference in life. That's what would come through. If you wanted to get an idea of what a quadrant 1 person would see in life, they would see this. They would see that if we just listened to our intellect, we'd never have a love affair, we'd never have a friendship, we'd never go into business. Well, that's nonsense. You've got to jump off cliffs all the time and build your wings on the way down. So Ray Bradbury said that. He's the man who invented Star Trek. And if that encapsulates some of how you see life, then you have a high quadrant 1 preference. If you read that and you say that's nonsense, I'm going to tell you why that is, because you have the opposite preference to this quadrant 1. But it's so useful to know this. It's so useful to know ourselves and to be able to know others. It makes life so much more fun to play. It allows us to dance through the chaos of life, and we're just getting started tonight. So quadrant 1 is really centered on the heart. And the heart, we realize, is not just a pump, as Chris Barnard said it was. Die hart is net 'n pomp. He said the heart is just a pump. And we know it's not now. The science has proved it a long time ago. That the heart is a sensory organ. It's an information coding and processing center with its own intrinsic nervous system. We have our own nervous system based around your heart that links up to the brain very sophisticatedly. And when we do gratitude, we fire off this heart space, we fire off this quadrant 1 space. So what you're seeing here is a composite of lots of people who've been under an MRI, and they've had an MRI taken of their brain where it's measured where the blood flow lights up the most. And so this is a space in the front right of the brain where we put that quadrant 1 space, where if people were under the MRI and they were doing gratitude, they saw this space light up the most on the most amount of people. So it's literally happening on the front right of the brain where we said that quadrant 1 was. So this is really a space of intention. It's a space of imagination sometimes. And so this is a space where we can actually have an effect on things and people remote from us. So this is a famous experiment they did where they had people who put in a remote prayer onto just vials of tap water. And then they looked at the crystals in this tap water afterwards. And if they'd had the control samples that didn't have anything, then their crystalline structure was off. And actually, if they had people thinking negative things, they had formed these ugly shapes. But when they measured this tap water that had people putting on prayer and love and gratitude literally onto this vial of water from many, many miles away, then they had these beautiful crystalline structures. So in the quadrant 1 space, in this heart space, we know we can have an effect on things in a non-local way around us. That is because the heart has this big electromagnetic field that goes on beyond us. It envelops every single cell in our body, and they've measured it up to 5 meters away quite specifically, and even up to 50 kilometers away. They reckon they can measure this from a single person. And we entrain on each other with this. So this heart communication goes through the nervous system. It goes through the pulse that gets sent through the body when the heart beats. The heart can actually communicate with its own chemicals, own hormones, and this electromagnetic energetic field. So it's an amazingly information-rich space to play in, is this quadrant 1. So in quadrant 1, if we were resilient, because if we want to make it through life and be more successful and get the things we want, resilience is an amazingly powerful thing for us to get. So if we want to be resilient in quadrant 1, we want clarity of purpose. We want to know what our core values are. We want them to be explicit. We want to demonstrate them. We want to communicate them. We want to know what our purpose is. You saw that I stated my purpose up in the front of this presentation. And so does it make sense that I have a high quadrant 1 preference? But if we don't feel like we're on direction, if we don't feel like we have purpose, if you're quadrant 1, then we're not in a space of resilience. We want to know what our outcomes are. We want to know why we're working towards things. Why is that big question? These are all big why questions that we want to answer, that we want to ask, and we want answers for in a quadrant 1 space. So if we have this, then we are resilient. Then life can throw its chaos at us, and we can dance through that chaos and dance around it because we have our own internal compass, and we can be adaptable. So that's quadrant 1. And so if one thing to take away from here tonight is quadrant 1 is based on gratitude. Quadrant 1 is based on gratitude, gracias, grace, the state of grace when quadrant 1 is firing beautifully. But if quadrant 1 is fragile, if we're not resilient, if we're fragile, then what we might be is a bit too airy-fairy, not getting pegged down to things, not getting anything done. We might be impulsive. We jump from one thing to another thing to another thing, and usually leave chaos and drama. Drama is a big part of fragile quadrant 1 that leaves in its wake. Unmet, unexplained expectations. And that's expectations of others on us and us on people that just aren't being met, that aren't defined. And so we end up being very dissatisfied with life in the world, and people end up sort of getting dissatisfied with us, and lots of exaggeration of our own flaws and faults, the world's flaws and faults, and maybe some exaggeration on how good we think we are, and we're covering up for how bad we realize we are. So this is this fragile mindset. This is not a great space to be playing life. And massive generalizations. We generalize about broad swathes of things. Oh, everything is messed today. My whole day was horrible. Maybe one thing happened that challenged you, but that would throw off everything in your life. That's a fragile quadrant 1 state. And then deletions. We omit certain parts of data. If you're relaying to somebody in your life how somebody said something to you, you're going to leave out certain parts of that story. And that's not because you're lying. It's just because you've deleted them literally within your mind. You're skipping over those parts to create this narrative for yourself. So it's not a really useful place to be. We're not really getting much use from that fragile quadrant 1. So if this is a space you'd love to play in more, you'd love to be more creative, more expressive, you'd love to be more gregarious, more risk-taking, here's how you can rediscover your quadrant 1. Because remember, we all have all parts and there is nothing missing. So here's how you can discover your quadrant 1 if it's dormant. Write a verse of poetry. Double the animation in your voice today. Speak twice as fast as normal. Speak authoritatively on something you know absolutely nothing about. List 10 absolutely stupid possibilities for a new project. Anything. Just go crazy. Double the animation in your face. Very expressive space in quadrant 1. Cross the road against the traffic lights. See at least one upside to every single event that's happened in your day. Meet 3 new people and find out where they were born. interesting little tidbit of information. Wear odd socks. Yeah, colorful clothing. Make things that don't match come in. Leave a big mess behind you. Just don't clean up. That's a very quadrant 1 way of doing the world. And leave your bed unmade for at least 5 days in a row. Now, there's some people out there who don't do quadrant 1 very well, who would cringe at that. And some people who do quadrant 1 amazingly, and they go, oh, 5 days? That's easy. You know who you are. You're out there. So in the chat, all I want to hear is, who out there is more quadrant 1 orientated? Who out there, from what we've done so far, feels that they have a quadrant 1 orientation in space? We've got some people coming on news going, no, not me. So who out there has just put me, if any of this has resonated with being a stronger preference for you in your life. Any quadrant 1s out there? Or I'm getting some people saying a little bit yes. So some people, remember, all of this is not exclusive. You might have seen some of this represents you in some way, and not all of it does. Some people say yes a little. Some people say it's my husband. Other people saying, so not me. Yeah, absolutely. And this is the opposite preference for some people. Okay, so we've got a few people coming through. I know we've delved through a lot. We're already over 35 minutes in. Can everybody who's on with me now, just tell me, are you with me? Just put yes into the chat box. Please come back to me. Remember, I'm talking to a screen here. So come back and just say yes. Tell me yes that you're with me. Everybody who's on, I'm waiting for every single person to put in yes. I'm seeing them roll in. If you're sitting there going, I don't have to do it on the keyboard. Yes, you do. Come on, put yes into the keyboard. Let me know that you're still here. Beautiful. 100% coming in. Yes, 100% yes. Yes, related to quadrant 1. Yes, you're in there. Beautiful. Okay, let's go to the polar opposite of quadrant 1. So that's the right front of the brain. So the polar opposite is the back left of the brain. That kind of makes sense. And so let's look at what quadrant 2 is all about. So quadrant 2 is all about order and structure. Quadrant 2 is about the learned brain. It's about education. It's about data, learning things. It's about what. It wants to know what things are about. Not why. Remember, why was quadrant 1. Now it's what. What is that? How can I quantify this? It wants tangible things. Science lives here. It's notice my efficiency. Yeah, maybe not as effective. I might not be doing the right thing, but I'm going to be efficient as hell at doing it. So if any of these relate to you, then you would say that you have a preference in quadrant 2. Accurate, analytical, assertive, auditory, like listening to things, orderly, needs to be right, doesn't like to be wrong, sometimes a little sensitive and serious, very detailed, very disciplined, dislikes being overly involved. It likes evidence. It likes things that's exclusive. It wants to follow through on things. It wants to get things done. It's usually pretty independent, not hugely team playerish in this space. It's about routine. It's about respect for authority. And if this appeals to you, then you have a high preference in quadrant 2. Develop your willpower so that you can make yourself do what you should do when you should do it, whether you feel like it or not. We already had a comment coming in saying that somebody's husband says that this describes them perfectly. Yes, if this is where you play, this is a quadrant 2 space. Now, remember, we all have all parts. We just have different preferences for how we use them. Now, none of these are good or bad. None of these are right or wrong. The question we ask ourselves is what we're doing and is the way we're doing life useful? So if we have resilience in this quadrant 2 space, we find order. Remember, in quadrant 1, we found purpose. Here we're finding order. We want data. We love data. And we want to have data that matters. We can turn the data into information that we can then relay and use. We have clear priorities and hierarchies on how things work and how we're doing things. And it's about critical thinking. If we have those, we're resilient in this quadrant 2 space. It's a useful way to play the world, play the game of life sometimes and be in the world. But if we're doing it in a fragile way, then we're nitpicking. We're problem-generating perfectionists. We're not using data to solve problems. We're actually creating problems, creating divisions. We're not moving through things because we're not making decisions. And paralysis by analysis is something that lives in this fragile quadrant 2 space. So if you find yourself unable to make decisions because you're nitpicking and you're trying to be a perfectionist, then this is a fragile quadrant 2 space. This leads to a lot of stress and anxiety in our lives. We want to be controlling if we're in this space. Often we want to control the whole world in this space. Certainly control the people around us who will see as being right or wrong or good or bad. We will place these judgments on people in this quadrant 2 space. That's not always necessarily a useful way to be doing things. We can be very critical in this space. You might not mean to hurt people's problems, but in a team environment, it's not going to be fun if we're doing this in a very fragile way. It's about being right or wrong, good or bad. And it's a space of high anxiety. Quadrant 2 in its fragile state is a space of high anxiety. It's driven by cortisol in this space. And we can be very reactive, very emotional in this space when we don't want to be. But we wouldn't really admit that we were wrong. So if you feel that you would like to develop your quadrant 2 space in a more useful way, in a more resilient way, here are some of the things you can do. Speak in a monotone today, because when we're transmitting data and detail, there is no need for emotion or inflection to come in. The data and the data would speak for itself. You criticize yourself for everything that you do today, because quadrant 2 is all about perfectionism, and you can never be perfect. So I didn't do this properly, and I didn't do that properly, and this coffee is not this way, and this isn't that way, and I didn't do this right. And you talk out loud all day long. Quadrant 2 definitely talks out loud. The voice in the head comes out of the head when you're in quadrant 2 space. You work slowly and precisely by yourself today. Say no to at least 3 people, because remember, quadrant 2 is a very exclusive space. So saying no is a good thing to be able to learn to do sometimes. Keep a time log of all your daily activities. Be at least 5 minutes early for every appointment. In fact, in a quadrant 2 space, if you're not 5 minutes early, you're 5 minutes late. Plan a routine at the start of the day and follow it precisely. Make sure that your work area is totally clean and tidy. Read the manual for a commonly used appliance. So if you use a blender at home, get out the manual and read through that manual for the blender. If you have a smartphone, get out the manual and read the manual for your smartphone. Be critical of every circumstance today. Criticism is strong in quadrant 2. And hang your washing on the line with color-coded pegs. And while you're doing it, do it in size order and color order, and do it in a way so that when you take it off, it'll fold perfectly neatly into the washing basket. So that's how you rediscover your quadrant 2. Okay, so who out there says that they might be a quadrant 2? Type me in the chat box if you feel you have a preference in quadrant 2. If quadrant 2 is a strong way in which you do the world. So some people definitely coming through with the big me in that. Yes is coming through, definitely coming through. If a maybe is coming through, remember, we all have all parts. You might do some of that, but not all of it. You might do it, but not to a huge extent. So we get some me's coming through, a whoop coming through, more yeses, more me's coming through. Okay, beautiful. So we're starting to be like, so what I'm getting from this is while you're watching this, you're starting to get some of these preferences. Could you see how 1 and 2, if you have a relationship between somebody who does 1 well and somebody who does 2 well, how they might kind of niggle on each other? Now they're really useful to have. Polar opposites, but as long as we can understand that we're speaking different languages, we're seeing the world from different perspectives. Remember, we don't see the world as it is. We see it through our own neurological filters, just like those visual puzzles that we had in the very beginning, those brain teasers in the very beginning. So if you can start to see how a quadrant 1 and a quadrant 2 preference do not see the world in the same way, you might start to see some of the relationship strife in your life or other people's lives. And now you can start to be more adaptable, less fragile, more resilient as you go through this. A couple of people saying, I'm not sure. That's fine at this point. We've still got 2 more quadrants to go. So now let's go into quadrant 3. It's the right posterior part of the brain, the right back part of the brain. Quadrant 3 is about hard, diligent work. It's about how to do things better. It's about iterating and making things better and delivering consistently. It asks more than it tells. It listens more than it talks. Quadrant 1 and quadrant 2, even though they're opposites, they can be quite verbal. But quadrant 3 is definitely a space of reception, asking more than it tells, listens more than it talks. It's very sensitive. It connects strongly with the body, very somatic in how it connects with the body, and very strong in its connection to the gut, because we process emotions in our gut. I'm going to cover that now. But if these words would describe you in any way, then the more of these that describe you, the more likely you are to have a strong quadrant 3 preference. You are calm, you're connected with people, you're an active listener, you're adaptable, you might be self-employed, you have a sense of what's right and just, you're a relationship builder, you're quite patient, you like routine, you like hands-on tasks, you very much like touch. When you talk to people, you're very much putting a hand on a shoulder or an elbow as you talk to somebody, if it's appropriate. Sometimes you do it to people who don't like it and they find it's inappropriate. Sometimes indecisive in the space if there's too much information coming your way, and you can be quite indecisive, but quite loyal, very practical in how you see the world. You usually want to do something with your hands. You usually want to create something material, something physical in the world. This is where crafting lives, building lives here a lot. So Wolfgang von Goethe said that it's not the maker of plans and promises, but rather the one who offers faithful service in small matters. This is the person who is most likely to achieve what is good and lasting. If that rings strong and true for you, then you have a preference in quadrant 3. Now remember, we all have all parts. We all have all parts. There is nothing missing in us. We all have all parts. There is nothing missing. So if quadrant 3 is something you'd like to do more of, realize it's connected to the enteric nervous system. The enteric nervous system is your gut, your digestive system. If quadrant 1 was connected to the heart, 2 is connected to the brain, the hindbrain, 3 is connected to the digestive system. The esophagus, your food pipe, your stomach, your small intestine, the colon, the big intestine. In there, we have 100 million neurons. 85% of the body's immune system is in the gut. So you have another brain in the gut and an immune system in the gut. And it sends and receives impulses from the brain. It responds to emotion. It actually processes emotional information over time. It's interdependent DOS processing center. That means it links up to the brain and to the heart, and it processes information for us. When this isn't working well, we say things like, I was sick to my stomach, or I was worried sick, and you get knots in my stomach, or I've got butterflies in my stomach. We have language to describe the fact that this actually happens in our gut. So this enteric nervous system is amazing. Every neurotransmitter that you want in your brain exists in your gut as well. In fact, serotonin, kind of happy hormone that we all hear about so much, and the happy pills are supposed to improve and increase, most of the serotonin in your body is created in your gut. Isn't that incredible? So resilient quadrant 3 is about connection. If we have resilience, if we're functioning on high levels, we're more likely to dance through the chaos. We have a sense of connection. We are engaged in life. We're engaged with ourselves. We're engaged with the people around us. We feel connected and engaged. We deliver. We feel like we are delivering and being of service to the people around us. We feel like we're making a difference to the individuals in our life. We're accommodating. We're adaptive. A resilient quadrant 3 will happily change their plans around other people's plans as they go through life. So if quadrant 1 was about gratitude, quadrant 2 is about critical thinking, quadrant 3 is about being capable. Quadrant 3 is really strong and good when it feels capable, when it's got those processes going. But a fragile quadrant 3, if we're doing life in a fragile state, a more stressed state, probably more depressed state, we have lack of delegation. This is classic for self-employed people. We resist systematization and automation. We see it as depersonalizing things, but the problem is it means we don't get to serve as many people as we want, and we often let people down if we don't have good systems. That's a fragile space to be. It'll work diligently in a business, and that's great, but it will not really do well at working on a business. And it creates dependency. It doesn't really want to, but by doing everything and not delegating to other people and not systematizing things, it makes people dependent on you. And then they don't do things and you feel like you let them down, and we're in a cycle on the way down of fragility and more stress. It craves security, quadrant 3 does. And this is one space where depression can definitely leak in. So that's quadrant 3 in a fragile state. So if we wanted to rediscover our quadrant 3, if you think that this would be a useful place for you to be living more of your life in a useful, evolved, resilient space, then get 2 people to acknowledge how well liked you are today. Quadrant 3 loves people telling it how lovely it is. It'll be self-effacing. It's not going to be kind of grandstand in front of the glory of people telling it what it's doing so amazingly, but people acknowledging it, touching you in the arm, that will feed the quadrant 3. Touch everybody you speak with today. A little touch on the elbow, if it's appropriate. I know we're in the age of not touching right now, so maybe put a pinch of salt in that one. But if it's appropriate, if it's family, people close to you, then touch them when you talk to them today. Give 3 people a big hug again, as appropriate with our current situation. Have a 15-minute conversation about a stranger, with a stranger, about them today. And the conversation needs to be all about them. Quadrant 3 is all about the other person and delivering. Smile all day. And you're smiling not necessarily because you're happy, because you want to make others happy. Run at least 15 minutes late. The problem with the quadrant 3 space sometimes is it's so accommodating for everybody else that the accommodation for this person makes you run late for the next person. But you don't want to let that person down, but then you end up letting that person down. But that's kind of how it goes, and that's okay, because it's so friendly and bubbly and connected anyway. Don't state what you want, because remember, it's not about you. Quadrant 3 space is very much about the other person. Agree with everyone. You don't want to be in conflict if you're in the quadrant 3 space. Don't ask anybody for anything, to do anything for you today. Just be of service to other people if you want to increase your quadrant 3. Avoid confrontation at all costs. Follow a strict routine. You might not stick to it as time specific as somebody at quadrant 2 would be, but you'll stick to a routine. You'll do what you said you'll do. You might just be late for it. And make one person feel good. Make at least one person feel good today. That's if you wanted to rediscover your quadrant 3 space and do that better. Okay, who out there resonates strongly with quadrant 3? So we've had people resonate with 1, we've had some people resonate with 2. Who's resonating with 3? Get some me's coming into our chat section here. So me, yes. Yes, big yeses, big me's coming in. So much, says Jessica. And somebody says more than the other one, absolutely more than 2. Yes, somebody says no, it's not her at all. Somebody says yes, definitely dominant. They get a me. Somebody says a bit of 2 and 3, absolutely. 2 and 3 can definitely go together. It's quite prevalent. Somebody says this was their highest score in the innate model. Some people say a little bit, but not too much. Absolutely. Now remember, we all have all parts. There is nothing missing. We're not here to head you in and say you are a this or you are a that. This is about preferences. Okay, so some of the people who said they were a little confused earlier, who didn't quite get something clear, are getting something clearer now. So now we start to get some clarity. Okay, so now let's move into quadrant 4. And you can see from this that 4 and 3 will be polarized and opposite, just like 1 and 2 were. Okay, now let's get into 4. So 4 is about universal mind. 4 taps into leaps of logic that can astound us and end up taking us in amazing directions. Quadrant 4 is about what else, what if, about breaking the machine to reinvent it into something much better. Quadrant 4 is just about do it now. Ready, fire, their name. It's about politics. And when I say politics here, I don't just mean the organized politics of political parties and voting. I'm talking about the act that happens when people get together, human beings get together, and we have different agendas we might want to get. Now, that might be as simple as trying to decide where to go out or which restaurant to eat at, or where to go on holiday with a group of people. What we're doing is we're doing an organization of people, and that is politics. Politics is the organization of groups of people. It can be formalized to run countries and businesses and all sorts of things, but quadrant 4 is where this space lives. Quadrant 4 is quite blunt. It's to the point, bullet points, blunt. It doesn't mean to be rude, but it can often come across that way, especially to somebody who's strong in the quadrant 3 space. And quadrant 4 seizes opportunities. It does not wait. If there's a half a chance that something might work, it's going to be in there, it's going to get it. So what kind of phrases, what kind of words would describe you if you were in that quadrant 4 space? So you would definitely be seen as an adventurer, somebody who accepts challenges, somebody who's an achiever, action-orientated, somebody who has an air of invincibility, like, I'll just carry on going, I'm never going to get struck down. Definitely likes to take charge, and people generally find a quadrant 4 person to put in charge. It functions really well in business. It functions really well looking at finance and money, where quadrant 3 person, a person in a quadrant 3 preference might not feel comfortable talking about money. Quadrant 4 person, no problem. There's no kind of emotion about it. It's definitely dominant, driver, it's much more intuitive, likes a leadership position, about maximum freedom. Quadrant 4 will multitask, sometimes to the point of not getting things done, but it is definitely problem solving. So those are the things that would define a quadrant 4. So Mark Victor Hansen summarizes quadrant 4 beautifully here, saying action eradicates fear. No matter what you fear, positive self-affirming action can diminish or completely cancel that which you are afraid of. So just doing something, taking action, the motto of a quadrant 4 orientation. In a resilient space, quadrant 4 in resilience can be collaborative. Now, when I said it's kind of sometimes dominating, it doesn't mean that it's in a devolved state, in a fragile state. It can dominate to push things down. But in a resilient state, in an evolved state, it's definitely collaborative, bringing people together, but in a specific direction. It loves to inform people and allow them to come together and do these things. It's all about expansive, a very expansive mindset when we are here. And it's all about action. So quadrant 1 was gratitude. Quadrant 2 was critical thinking. Quadrant 3 was capability. Quadrant 4 is action, taking action. Fragile quadrant 4. Dictator. Yeah, my way or the highway, now or get out. You're either with me or against me. It's intimidating. It's workaholic. Work, 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 work. And it confuses activity with accomplishment. It's the curse of busyness. So we can see that we see a lot of this in life at the moment, especially in kind of the corporate culture. This is sometimes revered, and you can see how corporate culture has a lot of this fragile default quadrant 4 space going on. So if we wanted to do it in a more evolved space, and you think maybe that you would like to do more quadrant 4 in your life, you want to rediscover this quadrant 4 space in your life, then what we're looking at is saying no to someone without giving them a reason. Yep, you just say flat no. Now, you're not being rude, you're just saying no. You might have a reason. I'm not saying you're doing it without having a reason. You do it without giving a reason today. Make a difficult phone call today that you've needed to do for a long time. Just get it done. Interrupt 5 conversations. Because, sometimes you can be dominant and I have an important point to put across and you just interrupt and say what you need to say. Or just take charge of the conversation. Steer it the way you want to go. Buy an electronic gadget and figure out how to use it without looking at the instruction manual. That's 4. No time for instruction manuals. They take too long. I'll figure it out on the fly. Tell someone that they're wrong today. Yep. Do twice as much today than you normally do see or produce. Quadrant 4 is a very impressively working place that works impressively on its own and gets stuff done. Change an appointment time with somebody at the last minute and don't apologize and don't give them a reason. And order 3 people to do things for you today. So you can see how delegation would be strong in this space. And insist on getting only the facts from someone today. Give me the facts, don't give me the story. That would be a way to exercise your quadrant 4. And come up with an idea that's somebody else's and then claim it as your own. So that's if you wanted to ramp up this quadrant 4 tendency in our life, if you thought it would be useful to do this some more. Okay, who out there can see some quadrant 4 in themselves here? Or who out there can see some quadrant 4 tendencies in their friends or their partners out there? Pop that into the chat box so I know that you're resonating with this as we go. This is a space, quadrant 4 is a space that can often be reviled and railed against, but is incredibly important to have done well, especially in a group environment. When I said that corporate culture does the fragile, devolved version of 4, remember it's really important for our evolved quadrant 4 to be really, really active in the right places at the right times. People telling me, saying there's like business leaders in the corporate. Yes, that's definitely a quadrant 4 led space. Some people say it's more my husband than me. Some people saying definitely not them, but other people they know. Husband, yeah, okay. So when we are doing life well, when we feel supported, we have enough challenge and enough support that we feel we're in growth, then we're in an evolved state. This is definitely a more a resilient state. We move from that base of the brain, the reptilian reactive brain, through the mammalian brain, where kind of emotions start coming through, and we get into this cognitive human space where we can act in the world with intention, and we can be more connected, we can be more useful, and we can be more evolved, is really the idea. So I said that my intention is to lift the stream of human consciousness and propel the evolution of mankind. I want to help people, and I want to help myself, first of all, to live much more in this evolved, supportive, resilient space in life, because we cycle up when we do things well. So this support creates that growth space. And in a growth mindset, we can be adaptable. We can flow through these quadrants. Because remember, we all have all parts. There is nothing missing. And we can do life really well. This is where you feel like you can dance through the chaos of life. You know that stuff's going on. And it's not that you don't feel bad at all, but it just means that you feel, yeah, I've got this. You know, like, oh man, that's tough. That's hard. But I can feel like this isn't going to get me down. This is a growth space. This is a space of ease. And in a space of ease, we move from quadrant 1 to 2, flowing to 3, flowing to 4, and then back to 1 again. You can see that figure 8 that we have is because it flows through the quadrants. We flow that way from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. So what happens when we're in challenge? What happens when we're in a state of defense? What happens when we're in a state of devolution? What happens if we go from resilient, where we can dance through the chaos of life, where we can live with purpose, we can get the data, the information we need, we can feel connected with all, we can get the results of what we want. But what happens if we're doing challenge? What happens if we're devolving? What happens if we're doing fragile mindset, where we're not feeling connected to our purpose? We don't feel like we can make decisions. We don't feel like we're connected. We feel like we're very disconnected and we're not getting the results we want. That's what happens when we're in this challenged, devolved space. And that's the fragile mindset. That's where we let stress get to us, where we then do stress. And we get this fragile mindset coming through. And we're doing defense. We're not doing growth. And maybe you resonate with this. Maybe this is one of the reasons why you've come onto the call. And that's when we're experiencing dis-ease in our life, disharmony, dysfunction. That's where things aren't flowing. So let's find out how you might do stress. Because under stress, the quadrants devolve. So now that you have an idea where some of your preferences lie, let's figure out how you do stress. Because stress is not something we have. It's not something that just magically appears. It's a process that we do through our neurology. So let's figure out how you're doing it. Let's shed some light on that. Then you have some information to work with. Now you'll be able to figure this out. How do you do stress? So a person with a quadrant 1 preference devolves the other way. So normally it would go 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. That's the flow of life. 1, 2, 3, 4. But now quadrant 1 devolves the other way. So from somebody who's a big picture thinker, who likes why, who's quite imaginative, kind of trust me, life will work out, they will devolve into, from an evolved quadrant 1, kind of the resilient quadrant 1, into the fragile quadrant 4. Dominating, domineering, yell and tell, my way or the highway. That's the way they would go. They'd go from nice and almost airy-fairy straight down to yell and tell. And that's not a nice way to do life, but that's how sometimes we do stress. And this is based on how our brain works. And you don't necessarily always choose to do it, but once you're aware of it, you can definitely choose not to do it. You can spot yourself doing it and choose not to. So if you had a quadrant 1 preference, you'll recognize this within yourself, your tendency to do that when the wheels start falling off. So somebody who's in quadrant 2 will then start doing the fragile quadrant 1, the devolved quadrant 1. So from being precise and data and detail and analytic, and maybe even kind of perfectionist, but if you get pushed, this perfectionist gets pushed from saying this is wrong and this is wrong and this is wrong, it goes up to the top and it goes, I mean, everything is wrong. Everything is screwed. The whole project is a waste. I wonder if you can recognize that in yourself. You get pushed and you try and find the detail, and then suddenly it just explodes into everything. You've gone from very specific to very generalized. That's a quadrant 1 space, very generalized, big picture. So from saying little things are wrong to going, everything is messed. The whole relationship's a waste. That's where we go into a devolved quadrant 1 space. So guess what? If somebody has a quadrant 3 preference, they devolve into quadrant 2. So if you have a quadrant 3 preference, you like to be connected. You don't like to have anybody left behind or upset. You stay away from conflict, very kind of soft, nurturing space. But if we get devolved in that space, we move over to quadrant 2, and that fragile mindset of quadrant 2 is divisive, very nitpicky, very critical of life. And you can see how then you're actually creating conflict. So you've gone from one to the other. See how they devolve through it. And then somebody who's in a quadrant 4 preference, if they do their fragile mindset and they go down, then they go down to quadrant 3. So imagine this. This is the big politician, leader, bravado, and sometimes maybe dominating. And if they're under stress, imagine what happens. There's a sex scandal and they want to go home and they want to go into quadrant 3. And quadrant 3 is all about being held and nurtured and kind of suck thumb and go back to mama, and often develop some digestive issues. That's what happens when a quadrant 4 devolves. So within this, you can see your style of doing stress. Remember, you don't have stress, you do stress. Stress is a doing, it is a process that we run. And if you can recognize your preferences, that then tells us how you do stress. And if you become aware of how you do stress, then you can do it differently. Now suddenly you have some choice, you have some response potential to this. You're not subject to it. It's not something that you're a victim of. This is something you have some influence on. Does this sound good? Does this sound like something you could use in your life? Give me the chat box. Give me some feedback on this. Do you start seeing some patterns of what you've been doing in life and how you might want to do things differently? I'm going to give you a chance to do things very differently in just a little while. But start giving me some feedback on this. If this has resonated with you and you realize that you've done things in a certain way and you might want to do them in a different way, give me a couple of yeses in here. Tell me some of the things that you've started to notice in this about yourself, maybe about your partner, maybe your realization on yourself isn't so strong. Yeah, some yeses coming through, absolutely. But it might not be something on yourself that you've seen. Maybe you've seen something about a partner. Maybe it's a colleague at work. Oh, is that what they're doing at work? Maybe it's a client that you serve who's kind of blown their lid and you can see how they've done it. And now you can do it. Yeah, people are saying it makes so much sense. They can understand their own behavior. That's beautiful. Absolutely. How people can go from 3 to a fragile 2. You go into too many details, more instigative, more critical. Absolutely, that'll happen. So if we can start to see our own patterns, now we start to have some control. Now, this doesn't mean after the call you're going to stop doing it completely. This is a process that's been going on for a long time. But our awareness of this is what can then drive the change for us. This is where we can start dancing through the chaos of life. This is where we can shine a light of curiosity and intrigue into this. This is where we can make a difference for ourselves and for the people around us. And on a daily basis, we are either spiraling up or we're spiraling down. And if you start to notice that you're spiraling down because now you're aware of how you're doing it, then you can put the brakes on. You can go, oh my goodness, isn't that interesting? I'm doing a devolved state and I've just really been a grumpy person today. I did grumpy really well right there. Oh man. So this awareness of yourself then drives your ability to change it. And we're either scaling up or we're screwing down. We're either going up or we're going down. So we're either being more resilient or we're being more fragile in life. And you get to decide. Remember, we said our psychology is driven by our philosophy. So we have our philosophy driving our psychology, driving our behaviors, driving our results. And this philosophy that we have, the why, is driven by our neurological preference, which now you know more about. Now you know more about your psychology. And if your psychology is more resilient, you're going to be doing better behaviors, you're going to get better results. But if your psychology is being more fragile because of how you're seeing the world, you're going to do less, you're going to do worse behaviors, you're going to get worse results. So wouldn't it be good to be able to be more resilient more often? Notice when you're doing fragility, notice when you're doing that fragile mindset, that defense mindset, and then be able to shift and change that. So to be able to do all of that, that's more than I can cover in one webinar. But now some people think that, oh, I don't know, I don't think I can change. Some people say, I don't know where to start. Some people say, I can't see how turning my life around is even possible. Well, this awareness that we've given you is the start. This awareness that we've given you is the start. And to go even further so that you can discover more of your passion, you can become more aware of your limiting beliefs, you can feel more connected so you can get better results. We've designed a way to take this further if this interests you. So just, I hope you'll bear with me in a moment while I give you an idea of how this can go further if you want it to go further. So if you become aware of how you do you, because you do your own personality, your own behaviors. And if you can work to your preferences, you don't have to, this is not a place where you go, oh, I'm weak in this place, I have to build up this weakness. No, it's how can I play to my strengths? Yes, how can I be aware of my weaknesses and make sure that they don't trip me up, but how can I play to my strengths? You don't have to make all of these equal. That's not the game. And we want to manage our own opposites. We want to manage those places that are not necessarily our strengths, and manage how we deal with people who come from the different quadrants. So if I'm a quadrant 1 and I'm a big picture thinker, if I can manage better how I deal with people who are more nitty-gritty data detail orientated, then life is going to be much better for both of us. So we've designed this process, the 5-day process called the Resilience Mindset Challenge, and it's all about helping people to get to more resilience. We're running it from the 1st of November to the 5th of November. That's from Sunday to Thursday. It's literally 5 days in this challenge. And we've designed this because so many people asked us, what's next? What's more? How can I take this innate model on? How can I know it much better? For some of you, you might have done this before with us, but it's an amazing process. It's not just a collection of videos. You're not just going to be left to watch videos on your own. It's an online challenge with live support along the way through these 5 days. What we touch on, what we go through is values, beliefs, our purpose, our goals, our internal dialogue, our internalized blockages, where we're being held back, these beliefs that hold us back, these personal laws, how to change beliefs and how to change behavior. So when we do this in a private Facebook group. It's a small group of people in a private group that support each other on this challenge. You get a roadmap. We give you a roadmap of exactly what's going to happen on every day, so you can see the whole map as you go. You get 5 daily lessons, 1 lesson each day for the 5 days on a very specific thing. The lessons are really short, 20 minutes or less, with an exercise afterwards that'll take you 10 minutes or less. So it's half an hour out of your day. The daily lessons are delivered to you early in the morning, South Africa time, so that you have the whole day to get to it when you can, because it's delivered with these 5 worksheets for each one. You can see there's 5 worksheets there, and you have 5 daily Q&A sessions that evening. And if you can't make the video or the Q&A session, everything is recorded on the Facebook group for you. And you have 1 month's access to the whole process. So after the 5 days, again, you aren't left high and dry. You can go back and revisit for a whole month. So you can really internalize and live this stuff. You can get something new out of it every time. Some people have done this more than once. People have done this multiple times, and they get something new every single time they go through it. We get something new every time we deliver this. It's amazing. And for people who join us, we have a very special competition, a beautiful prize for a winner who does this. Now, this is not for you. This is not for you if you just want to avoid pain. If all you want to do is avoid pain and not do any work to get there, this is not for you. If you want to hold on to these beliefs that don't serve you and you don't want to change them, then this isn't for you. If you want something to just be done for you, if you want to just show up and have something done for you, then this isn't for you. There's going to be some work involved in this, and it's really, really, really powerful. And this isn't for you if you're lazy. This isn't for you if you're not willing to put in time and effort into this. Now, I know it's 5 days, and I'm not telling you it takes hours and hours and hours out of your day. But if you don't want to do any work, then this isn't for you. However, if you feel that you want to be more grateful for life and you have some gratitude for life, then you're going to love this. If you feel this essence that you want to be open to new possibilities, that you want something new in your life, you're going to love this. If you want to develop your skills and your new skills at how you do life, you're going to love this. And if you're willing to do the work, if this is for you, then you're in here. So people who've done this before, so Bridget said it was great to sit down and think about her values, how she really spends her time and what she spends her time thinking about. She started to know where she was spending her time so she could do it more efficiently. Now I know I need to do work to make changes. So she knew which changes to make. Now, 5 daily videos delivered to you. So the value of that is at least 2,000 Rand. That's what, about £100, $120. The coaching calls in the evening, that's at least 5,000 Rands worth of value. That's £230 and $300. So this could easily be priced at 5 grand or above. And we normally do it at $900. But even at 5 grand, this would be a great deal with everything that you get. And it's based, remember, on this innate model. Now, Bruce Lipton, who's a really, really well-known author and speaker around the world, said that this innate model is precisely the knowledge we need for self-empowerment, not just self-development, but self-empowerment. So here's another person, Tracy, who did it. She says it's been a mind stretch for her. She's feeling empowered and uplifted. Would you love to have your mind stretched and feel empowered and uplifted? Fatima said, like, this is what she got. She got do it now. She said, seize the opportunity and do it now. That's what she got, because she thought she was trying to be too organized, and she realized that she wasn't taking her opportunity. She said, do it now and seize the opportunity. So if you want the tools so that you can easily understand yourself and your behaviors far more in depth than we went through tonight, so you can design your own transformation, you can take more powerful action based on what we went through tonight. If you can elegantly work with others based on their neurological preferences, so you can communicate better with people, you can get better results from your interpersonal relationships, whether it's personal, whether it's professional, whether it's a bit of both, this is for you. So Rob, who's a business owner, said there's a flow to his mind now that he can choose to either be stuck or move through the quadrants. He feels like it's like a light bulb. He now has choice. Ingrid, with the little knowledge that we have, the divine resources within them, I just need to take action and start playing with purpose. And she loves the concept of each of us being a creator. We will teach you how much you're a creator and how you can access your inner creator as you go through this. So again, we're starting on, sorry, the date there is wrong. That's the last date. So it's Sunday, the 1st of November to Thursday, the 5th of November. Remember, you get the private Facebook group. Yes, you get the roadmaps. You know exactly what's coming on what day. You get the 5 daily lessons, less than 20 minutes of lesson, less than 10 minutes of exercise. You can fit it into your life. It's delivered to you early in the morning. You can make it happen during the day. You get 5 daily worksheets to make it really, really easy to do. You get 5 daily live Q&As, and everything is recorded on that Facebook page so that you have a whole month's access to revisit this as many times as you want. And we have a very special prize for the people who are in it and participate. Now, what we've also got is no questions asked, money back guarantee. If anything in this that you pay for once you join doesn't go the way you want to and you're not satisfied, you simply tell us and you get your money back. Okay, so what are we doing with this? Normal fee is $8.99. We are doing this for only $4.99. So remember, we said at $5,000 value, this was easy. If all this does is help you navigate one relationship more successfully, if all this does help you to change one habit in your life over the next year, this has been well worth your time. So to sign up, you go to theresilientmindsetchallenge.com. Again, the normal registration fee is $8.99. We're doing it for just $4.99. Registration closes in 3 days. We start on Sunday. So who's going to sign up for this now? Who's going to make a commitment to themselves to do something differently, to get a different result in their own life? Who's going to go on and make this change for themselves now? You only have 3 days to sign up to this. That's 5 days out of your life, and you get these amazing changes that you've heard from everybody there today. So if you have any questions on this, please put some questions into the Zoom chat panel there. We'll answer these questions as we go through. Remember, we're going to get 5 daily lessons. The daily lessons are incredibly powerful. Just that on its own will help you to shift your mindset so massively. You get the Q&A sessions in the evening. We will then round back on that. And the Q&A sessions are really driven by you. So whatever comes up for you, it is tailored to you. You're not just lost in and amongst a group. This is really specific to you. We'll also be in that Facebook group answering questions as we go through it as well. So this is individualized to your journey. You get the roadmaps. You know exactly what's happening. So some of the questions that come through is people say, I've got kids and I'm really busy in my life. And we absolutely get that. We do too. So that's why we've designed it so that this is delivered to you every morning, early. It comes out at 5 o'clock in the morning in South Africa time. So you can do that 20 minutes whenever in the day that you can, even in bits and pieces. And then that 10-minute exercise that you have to do. That's the main stuff. And then you can make the Q&A session that evening. That's great. If you can't, it's recorded. So remember, if your life is crazy, if your life is hectic, then you've got a month to get to this. We would say get on it as much as you can during the 5 days, because that's where the real juice happens. But you've got a month access after that. That's massive. Okay. And some other questions coming through. So the 499, yeah. So in pound terms, let me just do a conversion for you. Some people are asking in different currencies, and in dollar terms, I think it's about $30 US. Else, if you've got that up, can you bring up the currency conversion there for us? I've got it here now. So it's $4.99. So that is £23 and it's $30. That's what it comes out to for those who are either live or watching internationally. Great. Any more questions coming through? Is it delivered on Facebook? Yes, so it's the Facebook group. So we'll give you access. It's a secret group. Nobody knows about it until you get an invitation to it. And it's private. Nobody else is in that group except people from the group. So this is a really powerful space, a really safe space. We put together a nurturing space. We're in there helping you. You're helping each other. The insights that you get there are just tremendous. And it's really easy. TheResilienceMindsetChallenge.com. So people are asking how many are there in the group? Well, that depends how many people join from this. So it's all based on how many people come in through this webinar and what will happen in the next few days. Else, you have something to add in at the moment?
I just wanted to say that I know for some people during these times it could be a bit of a stretch, but from our previous challenges we have had people who have come into the challenge, and through the work that they've done with the challenge, they have managed to manifest, to attract their ideal dream job. So it's a very worthwhile investment. We even actually had one of our team go through it, and has since moved on to another position somewhere else. But it was her dream, it was her manifestations that she had created during this challenge, that allowed her to put that out there and to do that.
Yeah, that was really, really powerful. So we've had people find dream jobs. We've had business owners be able to easily make this money back, and non-business owners make this back in short order, based on being able to do that. It's been really, really powerful. We've had people in marriages that have been unhappy, that have, and I'm not going to say kind of cured everything, but suddenly they found more common ground. It's powerful. People reconnected with their kids reconnecting with their parents based on this. People really taking powerful action and changing how they're dealing with their body in terms of nutrition and weight and kind of exercise. We've had some really ways that people's lives have been changed through this really, really cool program. We're constantly humbled by the feedback that we get. Those snapshots of what some people said about the
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Sorry, that's my Siri talking to me. So some of these snapshots that we have of people like Ingrid and people like Rob who've been talking about their experience doing this, we haven't taken the biggest testimonials. We haven't taken the most gushy ones, because you wouldn't believe the stuff that some of these people have said. So like Ingrid said, she can shift herself from curiosity to conscious competence. So like imagine shifting yourself that way through life in just 5 days in a really beautifully supported, beautifully curated, beautifully run space where we will be there to support you and guide you and hold your hand the whole way through. All right. Any other questions coming through?
I'm not sure I understand.
Sorry, my Siri seems to think I'm talking to it all the time now. So that's the ResilienceMindsetChallenge.com. And it's a really powerful process. We love running it. This is something that we've run over and over and over again, and we get so much joy from doing it. And it's something that produces such powerful results. And if we did this with people on a one-on-one basis, this would go for close to 10,000 Rand. In fact, it has gone for 10,000 Rand. So being able to do this in a group format is even powerful, and bringing it down by 20 times the price that we've been able to do with some of the licenses we've had to negotiate through the Innate model is a really, really big win. So we'd love to see people join up for it. You've only got 3 days to join on. We've got a couple of people who are signing on, so that's gorgeous. Don't get left behind on this. Don't let this be something, because we don't know when we're going to run this challenge again. I know sometimes people say this with these online courses and things, but honestly, we don't know when this is going to run again. This is really powerful. We really enjoy it. and it takes a hell of a lot from us to put it on, and we love doing that for you, but we don't know whether this is going to run again. There's a question on the licensing of how we use the innate model where we might not get a chance to do this again. So you've got 3 days to take action. If you're on the call now, go to theresilienceMindsetChallenge.com and pop that in there. Get yourself in there. I'm going to put up the URL in the spacebar now. The Resilience Mindset Challenge.com. The Resilience Mindset Challenge.com. So the link is there. Simply click on the link, take yourself through, and invest in yourself. Really invest in yourself. Make this something that you do because you are worth it. And it's one of the things I really want you to know is your life, your attention, your life's purpose. It matters. There are people around you that love you, that need you. You need to be the strongest, most resourceful that you can be in this time. Somebody who's done the course has kind of sent a message through saying it's awesome. Everybody should do it, and we'd wholeheartedly agree. And we'd see that in the world now, this is the most stressed we've ever seen people by a long shot. This is the most challenged we've been individually and collectively in a long way. And it has never been more important to look after ourselves. I've got some people saying that we're parents and we can't take this time off for ourselves. And I would say that if you're not going to do it for yourself, who is going to do it for you? And know that our kids, our children, they follow what we do, not what we say. And so this is something where you can demonstrate to them how they can live a more coherent life together, how they can take care of themselves, because you can't give from an empty cup as a parent. If we're not looking after our well-being, if we're not filling up our cup, then who is? And if our cup is empty, then how much are we affecting our kids around us? So this is a beautiful space where you can take time to refill your cup so you can be a more coherent, more integrated, more resourceful, more resilient parent, less fragile, less shouty, less demanding, more connected to them and their preferences. So that's the ResilienceMindsetChallenge.com. Again, normally $8.99, we're doing it for $4.99, and registration is just open for 3 days. And we're going to get people coming on. Yep, we can already see people coming on and looking to get themselves checked in. Make sure you don't miss out. Make sure that you get in. We're going to close off. We've just gone to our hour and a half. I really hope that you saw some of your preferences, quadrant 1, 2, 3, 4, that you saw how you do life, that you've noticed how you do life, you've noticed how you do stress, and you can be aware of how you can do it differently. Just from that, what we've done tonight, you can make major shifts in your life. You can make major shifts in how you do life, and how you can dance through the chaos of life more. You can move yourself up towards that 10 out of 10. And if you want to take things further, we'd love to have you along. The ResilienceMindsetChallenge.com. Registration closes in 3 days. In 3 days, it's done, and we don't open it again. Like when I say 3 days, it's closed. It's 3 days is closed. So again, thank you so much for your time. I love being able to teach. I love being able to help to see the lights on go in other people's lives, the same way that it did for me, the same way that it has for my family, and continues to do so. And I want to say thank you to you for being here, because I can't do this to no one. Thank you for being you and for being here, because without you being there, there is no me here. So really, really, really appreciate your time and attention. If you're watching this on replay, I love you. Thank you for watching this, and have a fantastic time. Have a great night, everybody. And I hope to see you inside the Resilience Mindset Challenge. Don't delay.